U.S. citizenship, hey, it's a big deal. It's a major deal. People come from all over the world seeking to become naturalized U.S. citizens. But what about people living here? What about those who want to prove that they are U.S. citizens having been born in the United States? Well, that takes us to this week's case. It involves a man by the name of Mohamed Abdul Matin. Now, Mr. Matin was living in the United States. He applied for a U.S. passport, and it was denied because it said there was not sufficient evidence to demonstrate that he was a U.S. citizen. Well, his history is somewhat tortured. He indicated that he was born in the United States in Chicago, and he was born to a woman who was accompanied by her husband, who had been traveling from India. He was born prematurely, and he was born to a midwife in Chicago. A birth took place at home. The midwife was assisted by an assistant, 17-year-old niece at the time. Following this, he said he was taken to a hospital and checked out and found to be a healthy child. Okay, parents returned to India. He traveled under his mother's passport until age 13 when his mother died. When he was age 13, his father applied for a passport, an Indian passport, and said that he was born in India. Okay. He then traveled on that passport for a period of time, and he was back and forth between the United States. He met a woman, an American woman. They got married in India, and when they got married in India, Mr. Matin, had a marriage certificate drawn up that showed his place of birth was Chicago, Illinois. He then, when he returned to the United States, went to the state of Illinois and requested a birth certificate. The state of Illinois asked, what kind of information do you have, what kind of evidence do you have, and what he offered was the fact that he had that marriage certificate from India and also had the affidavit from the woman who at the time he was born was 17 years old, Judith Rogers. Based upon that, the state of Illinois issued him a birth certificate. Okay. When he, however, was denied a passport by the U.S., he brought the claim. And in the court, he offered the following evidence. He offered the fact that he had the affidavit from the midwife assistant, he had the birth certificate from Illinois, and in addition to that, he had the various documents in which he had indicated that he was a citizen born in the United States. Now, one interesting thing is that when his two kids applied for passports, he indicated on that application that he was born in India. That kind of cuts the other way here. So, at the end of the day, the federal district court has to consider this evidence. And at the end of the day, the federal district court came away and said, no, we don't find that there's enough evidence to establish that you are a U.S. citizen because you were born in the United States. There just isn't enough evidence, and you have to show by a preponderance of the evidence that you, in fact, were born in the United States based on the claim that you're bringing. Case went up to the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, and up there the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals agreed with the trial court, and they came away saying, yeah, trial court, you're right, and Mr. Matin, you do not have sufficient evidence to establish by a preponderance of the evidence that you are a U.S. citizen having been born here. So what do we learn from this? We learn two things real quickly. One, we learn that in fact, if an issue exists as to whether someone is born in the United States, there's a way in which to address that, and you do that by bringing in action in a U.S. federal court. Secondly, we learn that whenever you've got a case, and we've talked about this before, you have to establish it by a preponderance of the evidence. What does that mean? That means that it is more probable than not that you in fact are correct. And when we say that, think of the scales of justice, and what you have to do is pile enough evidence on there that it weighs in your favor, showing it is more probable than not that you are correct. Okay. We bring you this case, as we bring cases every week, so you understand how the law works. I'm David Allen.